Today we're going to speak about something very, very important. Very important. Not that it's more important than anything else. I mean, everything is important in terms of the build-up. But the basic concept we're going to speak about today is the central idea of why everything is the way it is. The central idea. So it's obviously very important. But we're going to be connected to everything else. Okay. If you remember last week, what did we say? We said that the central tachlis of the Bria, the reason why the Bnei Shalom created anything outside of him was is to be mative. Now we didn't examine, he's a Tov, we said, and he wants to be mative. Now we didn't examine why he wants to be mative, what that has to do, does that mean that he has a certain need? You know, we really didn't examine this kind of thing. The question that's and you had asked the question last week, which we'll still have to go into. You know, it's mashma from the fact that he's paid and he wants to be mative, so therefore he did it as if it was done in a certain time. You know, why that time? Why was it done? Why did he do time and so on? That was the question you asked, and I said we'll get to that eventually. We'll get to that eventually. Okay. We said that the first important thing that you need for the to be mative is a zulasa. You need someone outside of him. He has to be mative to an object. So hence there has to be a zulasa. And we said that zulasa besides him was the neshama. And we described the neshama essentially last week in terms of the kind of material it's composed of, its substance, its structure. And we said that the central feature of the neshama is the notion that it has a self. Awareness. And this was the main thing. And we said that this self is an incredible thing because the truth of the matter is the one thing that the neshama has, which is separate from the neshama, is this awareness, this sense of I. You see, that's the one thing with mamash zulasa. That's the nekuda which mamash makes it separate from the neshama. Now I'm not going to go into the other question. How could something be totally separate from the neshama if it's ain't no vadai? How is that possible? That's the question here on the creative process. How does the Bnei create something which is truly outside of himself? You see, if he has everything, what does that mean? If it's outside of himself, then it's not him. You see, but if it is him, then it's not outside of him. I mean, you know, that's a problem that we won't go into tonight. It's a deep philosophical problem. It's a problem that Kabbalah deals with it through different attempts. The basic thing is to concept of symptom and so on, but that's a very difficult question to deal with, and we're not concerned with that because it's far more important for us to understand the ramifications of that thing itself. Once it's accepted, what then? So we have a zulasa. Oh, so now we can start.
Now we start only.
We start, but we chazing, and so on. There's this zulasa and so on. Now, what's the problem? Good, so he'll be mative. How is he mative? What does it mean that he's mative to this neshama? That's what we have to examine. What is this hatova that's given to the neshama? You see. And this is a fundamental we want to know. What is hatova to the neshama? Because what is that? Does anyone have anything to say?
He gives them the life, no?
Yeah, he's existing, but that's not a hatova. Existence is not a hatova.
He's the one created it.
He created this neshama. He created the neshama, the zulasa. I don't know the chair maybe. Okay. Yeah. So he created zulasa. It's mative. You see, you can't. He's the object of hatova, but the hatova is some separate thing from him.
The hatova has to be risharism. Well, it has to be.
But who?
I know when I was thinking over this, it was bothering me that. So the whole purpose of creating the world was that he should be mated. So why is it awful? Why do we have to suffer? Why do we have to do so much for him? So it must be that this is tied in with the hatova that we have to do for him.
Yeah, but that's something else. It's tied in indirectly. There's something called the hatova, and then there's something called the avodah that we have to be mishorasim. All these things. We probably won't. I don't think we'll get to it this week. We'll get to it next week.
Part of the hatova, because otherwise, why do we have to suffer?
No. Why?
It has
nothing to do with the hatova. In fact, the truth of the matter is, I would say a very broad statement, a very profound statement. It is impossible for you to be an Erech Yid if you do not know what that Hatava is. Now that doesn't mean you cannot reach a high Madrega without knowing what that is. You cannot. So the Shal is, why not? Because, now let me tell you something. This Hatava is something which is, obviously is lots of love. This Hatava is something called Olam Haba. Although that's not really what it is. Olam Haba. Olam Haba is a place which has this Hatava. That's what it is. When they say, that the whole tachlis of us is to be over them and to be in the Torah and mitzvahs on it to get Olam Haba. Right. Obviously, since Olam Haba is the ultimate objective, Olam Haba is where the Hatava is going to be. That's what it is, you see.
Who needs the Olam Haba? I want to be here.
That's what I mean, exactly. It's exactly that. That's why when you say who needs it, you don't even know what the Hatova is. Right. You don't know what it is. So you're right. You're saying, I don't know what it is. Who needs it? I live in this life.
And I want to live.
And I have things which give me Hatova. I have my Yetzer Hara, I have my Taivus, I have my all kinds of things. I feel good about these things. What do I need anything else? So a person cannot really be a Yiras Shamayim. Because the ultimate question is, for example, you go to a guy in college and you say to him, why are you going to college? He says, I'm going to college because I want to study to become a medical doctor. Oh, why do you want to be a medical doctor? Because I feel that it's a profession which gives me a certain sense of satisfaction. It gives me a sense of financial security. It gives me a sense of esteem, respect. It's going to satisfy my physical needs, those physical and psychological needs. So he has a clear sense of his objective. He knows where he wants to go. And he knows, he's going to it. Now, what's your objective? You ever think of that? What really is your objective?
What is our
to keep
purpose?
the Torah? That's not an objective. Because the child is, why do you keep the Torah? For what? To keep the Torah? So the answer is to get Olam Haba. What in heaven's name is Olam Haba? What is that? How do we expect you to work for something and struggle for something which you have no concept of what it is? So you may say to me, the Gemara says about Olam Haba, Ayin Lo Asa, no eye has ever seen it. It would imply that the Baruch does not want you to know what it is. That doesn't make sense.
1 second of Olam Haba, then
It says, Yofesh Shoachas, the Torah says, Yofesh Shoachas,
Mikol Chayav, and the Yofesh Shoachas, okay, right, like 1 hour in Olam Haba is worth Mikol, obviously, okay. Chal Mitzvah Hamaleka, there's no Schar in this world. All these statements.
You have anything to do with Yoshem, with the time of Shem, and
that's a very good statement. And that's the one we're going to pull out. But fundamentally, we say, what is Olam Haba? No one knows what Olam Haba is, really. So why should anyone work for anything? Really. Fundamentally, if you ask yourself, you don't do anything unless you have some idea of what the objective is. Well, you're not going to get at the motivation to do it. Simple as that. Yet, it's expected to be from Yidden and to go through a life of mysterious nefesh. To be an Erech Yid is to be a Moshe Nefesh. It's not Pasha. It means to give up a lot of aspects of Olam Haba and so on and so forth, without even knowing what you're going after, for some dream called Olam Haba.
So that's a big credit. Well, it
is a big
maybe
credit.
That's why we're not so. That's why people are.
That's
really
one.
But on the other hand, take a look at people that do hold without really knowing what it is for.
So in a sense, it's a credit and it's a son. It's a credit because it's the guy's really working, even though he really doesn't know what he's going to get in the end. But in a sense, it's a stone because you cannot really work hard.
He makes men after the Nishma.
Yeah, but they're right. Okay, yeah, but they're not the Nishma. You want to know them in the Nishma. Without a Nishma, there cannot be a full-fledged Naser. Totally. You start with the Naser, but you've got to finish with the Nishma. You cannot reach Hamadreg with this one. So it's a very big, it's a simple problem and so on. You ever think of it? You ever think of it like, well, what is it? Why do we do this and so on? I'm going to try and answer this tonight. Basically, what that is. Chaim Shmuel brought up the Ika statement. It says there, I think it's I forget exactly the Lashon Gemara. Tzadikim Yoshvim, Tzadikim are sitting, the Olam Haba. V'itu Aseyim B'Vashehem, and their crowns. Our Torah is in their head. They're like crowns or something, V'neneh Meziv Shechina, and they have Hanor from Meziv Shechina. It's a fascinating statement. They have Hanor from Meziv. So that's obviously talking about Gan Eden or Olam Haba. Olam Haba and Gan Eden are the same, except for certain things which we're going to later on. There are certain similarities. What does it mean the name Meziv Shechina? They have Hanor from the Ziv Shechina. What is Shechina and what is Hanor? But it shows you an interesting thing that Olam Haba is a Hanor. It's a turn-on. It's a turn-on situation. It's a pleasure. I may use a gut-level word.
It's high.
What? I mean, you understand? It's a high of some sort. It's an ecstatic experience, to use a more sophisticated word. You know, what kind of experience is that? So we say, well, look, when you're in the Shema, you understand what it means. I've been in kind of Shema yet, so I don't know what it is. You know, I don't know what it is. I can't be nenef in such a zach. This is statement number one. The next thing is, what we want to understand what this thing is. The second thing is, Tzaddikim are very funny people. Tzaddikim. There are certain levels in when you look at the Torah. I'm not going to go into this right now, but when you look at the level of avodah, what it means to be an Elach Yid. If I say fundamental to you, what does it mean to be an Elach Yid? What is the akachas of a Yid? So what are you going to say to me? Keep the Torah, right? Are there any other answers here? No. To keep the Torah, that's what it means to be an Elach Yid. That's one way of saying it, but that's not the emes of it. That's not the pneumius of it. An Elach Yid is not a question of keeping the Torah, although it's involved in that. You cannot be an Elach Yid without keeping the Torah, but you can keep the Torah and still not be an Elach Yid.
Yeah, keep the Torah L'Shma.
Yeah. What does that mean, L'Shma?
To do it out of love and not out of force.
Out of force. Okay, we're moving along. What does this mean, basically? Number one. And number two, the avoid is divided into two categories. And you see this in the Tzimmus Rishon. That when you talk about avodah or what an Elach Yid is, the Ramchal says in Mesil Shom that there's several different madregas. Basically, he says basically this. He calls several madregas, but I'll divide his madregas into three madregas. First madrega we refer to as a yashar, someone who is just and straight. The second madrega is a tzaddik, someone who's righteous. And the third madrega is someone who's called a chosid. Or in a higher, I don't mean the Hasidus thing was there. And part of that chosid thing is called a kadosh. The chosid sometimes referred to as kadosh, although there are different aspects. What does this mean? A yashar is someone who keeps all the mitzvahs in the Torah, the loises in all the ethics. Every estimate that he keeps good. I mean, you can't be flawless. Except what it is, he doesn't keep the fine parts of the mitzvah. For example, he'll never say a word of lashon hara, but he'll be involved in what's called avach lashon hara. He'll never go and steal something. He'll never go steal something outright.
That's what they'll say.
Yeah, no, but he'll be marked for certain things, or not. It's nothing exile, but he'll be over something sometime, maybe a little. No, even Mitzvah Din, he is not, like he'll get the station, but there's no fine tuning so. He keeps the mitzvahs and so on. He's not what?
My question: how is it the Rabbanan? He's talking about
even the Rabbanan, right?
Or time the Rabbanan too.
Yeah, he's he's not Mekayim even he's basically the Rabbanan, but the halachos to the first minute he will not be Mekayim. To go into the first thing, he's a knocker because he's a very Elach Yid, you see, in that kind of sense. But a Yasha is a very high madrega. It's not a Pashut madrega because he's keeping every mitzvah, mamish bezrizis and bezehiris. But in the fine tuning of each of these mitzvahs, he won't keep. You see, what's the tzaddik? Then the next one is a tzaddik. Tzaddik is a righteous man. What does it mean? It means he keeps everything, every deraisa and every derabbanan, and even every chumrah. And all these things, all the chokas and so on, he's called a tzaddik. He's the kind of guy that, Elohimiach, halachas in the Torah. He's a tzaddik. What's that? Yeah. Well, the people throughout the Doros, we made tzaddikim. The guys. Do you have people at tzaddikim? Yeah, sure. I'm sure, like the big Rebbe's big men on the tzaddikim. Very big Rebbe's tzaddikim. I don't say, starting Rebbe's, these are big tzaddikim. I mean, there are a lot of Elach Yidin who are. I mean, that's tzaddikim you don't find anymore. A person keeps every halach until you keep. Okay, fine, that's a tzaddik. Now, what the Ramchal says is that the Torah expects every Yid to be a tzaddik. That is the goal of every Yid, to be a tzaddik. Okay, what's the chassid? The chassid who goes with name of Shadin. He goes beyond the din. It's made that he goes beyond the din. He is involved not only in keeping the Torah, but he goes beyond in the sense that he begins to separate himself from Olam Hazeh.
It's not allowed.
What? It is. And in terms of avoid, it is. Normally you have to Kaddish Asmach Mutloch, you have to be involved in what's mutter, but there's a madrega called a chassid who goes with name of Shadin. What it is he's concerned with purifying himself to such an extent where he mamash becomes purge. He's purged from the tyrants of Olam Hazeh. Mamash purged. Who? Not Nazir. Nazir has an Indian of chassid. There's an Indian, yeah. But he's a person whose whole life, like the man, like he fasts, for example, or he's extremely zohir on Taivas Nashim, or he's extremely zohir and achila. Like he doesn't even take something to eat. When he takes it, he doesn't feel. Whatever the story, he doesn't feel it. That's a very hard madrega, a chassid. You see, that's a person who's over to such an extent where he begins to withdraw from involvement in the material aspects of the world.
So why is he here?
What?
He came here to do something.
Yeah, well, that's the avodah. He wants to do the Torah mitzvahs in such a way. He wants to withdraw so that he can feel ruchnius more powerfully. You know, the logic is that the less you have to do with this world, the less you have hamshocha to this world, the less you're drawn to this world, and the more you can experience ruchnius. That's what it is. He'll finally get to the madrega of a Kaddish, who's the person who's reached such a madrega of precious. His involvement in Olam is minimal, and the man he's totally involved with Torah, with learning, but more than that, with this whole thing of this whole.
He's just incidental here.
Okay, now the shaila is, we ask ourselves a question like this: take a Kaddish, take a man who's on that level, or even a tzaddik, and so on. We ask ourselves a question like this: why are they Kedoshim? What does it take for a man to become a Kaddish?
Comes from a family. Right?
What?
It comes from a family.
That's one thing, but there are many who didn't come from family, and the truth of that is that's not so.
It depends what neshama they got.
That's one thing. Is that what it is? For example,
does that mean if someone got something less, you can't become a tzaddik or a kaddish?
Everyone has yichudis to become a tzaddik. Not everyone has yichudis to become a kaddish. That is true. And if he's a kaddish, he gets ruach kodesh. That's when he goes into the higher category of ruach kodesh, and the higher one is nevius. There's how many of these, but you have to reach those stages to become a navi. Do you know that in Klal Yisrael, in the time of the first base of Mikdash, there were 1 million neviim? Do you know that? You know that there were 1 million people in Klal Yisrael. I mean, how many people were there in Eden? You know, and they were called the Bnei Neviim. There were 1 million people who reached the madrega of being navi. It's staggering. You see, 1 million of them. Like every one of them is like Mishul. Like you think that Elisha and Eliyahu and Yeshaya, these were the biggest. You know. But 1 million of them were Nevi'im. Who?
The same ones who worship the Egel?
No, that's different. But they're part of Chal, so we don't go into this thing. But there were so many people who were Chal had tremendous Kedushim. There were many tzaddikim. They were tremendous in this kind of level. I mean, you can't see this because there's nothing around anymore. You know, who was on this generation? Millions. You can find it. Unfortunately, you can barely find them. You can't find 5 Kedushim on your already. I mean, that's how low it is already. It's that kind of thing. I mean, like the Ridnitzer, for example. Yeah, that's a Kaddish. I mean, you know, like the Ridnitzer is fasted 60 years. I mean, it's Yedua. I mean, they also know the Ridnitzer River. That's a Kaddish with such incredible appreciation. That's tremendous avodah. I mean, you see, that's what we mean by Kaddish. So we ask ourselves the Shaila, how do these men do it? That's incredible. Then what is it? They had their family. They had a father who said, you better go become a Kaddish, or else. Is that what it is? I don't think so. I mean, there are a lot of people who said, the whole halavai can get their kids to learn in yeshiva. Must to be a kaddish. I mean, what makes the man a kaddish? All these things. What motivates a person to go to such a level? That's the one question. Also, there's a question here. Let's say, for example, when Moshe Rabbeinu put on tefillin. Okay, you put on tefillin in the morning. Moshe Rabbeinu put on tefillin. Now, what is the difference between your act of tefillin and his?
He put the tefillin, he didn't think about nothing. Really.
No, he knew the reasons why he put it on tefillin. We do it because it says halacha.
But you cannot see. You know, in the actual action of tefillin, there's no difference between where you put it on Moshe Rabbeinu. None.
Assuming what can it mind?
So where does it lie? It lies in the pneumius.
Yeah.
It lies in the
pneumius. Internally, what you have in mind.
Yeah. Okay. You see this interesting thing. It lies in the pneumius. Now, what I would like to say is essentially that The reason why a man is a Kaddish, or these people, is not because they're crazy or they have an incredible amount of stamina and endurance or motive. No. Because they know what Olam Haba is.
How can they know?
They know the Hatava because they feel the Hatava. How could he feel the Hatava? What am I talking about? What am I talking about? I'm talking about the following. Let's go back to Olam Haba and then we'll go back to this. Okay? What is Olam Haba? The Nene Miziv Shechina. What does mean Nene Miziv Shechina? You know, the Banishim is a very interesting being. He's a very interesting being. When the Banishim was thinking, Kaviochel, he wasn't really thinking, but we're talking about him as if he's, he's considering the whole matter. We have to talk about it in human terms, although this is not what happened, and we'll see later on what not. He's saying to himself, I want to be maker. No, I need a Hazulosai. Now, fine, I make a Hazulosai. How am I going to be maker? Well, I am perfect. I'm Shleimit. I'm perfect, right? I'm the most pure form of all existence. I'm pure existence itself. So that's the way, and I want to give a Tova. I'm perfect. And therefore what I give must be perfect. So I want to give a real Tova, which is unbelievable. So he's thinking, what kind of Hatava can I make? The Banishim realized there is only one Hatava I can give. And what's that? Me. What does that mean, me? It means this. I am perfect. And for an imperfect being to be mastered me, or to even give any kind of glimpse of me in whatever level, suddenly produces such an ecstatic state that it's unbelievable. And that's really what it is. The Buddhism is perfect being, and because he's perfect being, he exudes what's called perfect beauty. What is perfect beauty? Let's say you're walking along and you see a magnificent painting, or you hear a symphony, which is incredible in its harmony, you see. Or you go and you see a landscape, a beautiful scene like one of these real, like in Hawaii, you see this sea in the mountains, I don't know, wherever you want to go, you see that's incredible. And you see this. When you look at it, there's a certain hanoah that you get just by the listening or the looking, just the hanoah alone. Or for example, let's say you have a certain idea, like last week for example. I assume that you like the idea of the awareness and so on. So when you understood that, or when you understood the idea of that thing with the Banisham, what did it do to you? Suddenly it did something to you. You felt a certain hanoah. It felt good. There was a certain hanoah. Why? What did you grasp? The truth of the matter is that the essential feature of truth is beauty. What really is beauty? Beauty is nothing more than harmony, total harmony, and an understanding of how everything in the thing fits together. That's what beauty. That's beauty. And when you see this, what emanates is a certain feeling of beauty. When you hear a symphony and every note follows the other note to produce a beautiful flow of pitch and rhythm, so it's combined in a certain way, the person in his mind senses just the movement of it, and that creates a certain feeling in him. That's beauty. When he sees a certain picture which is incredibly done with the colors and the shades and everything is done, there's a beautiful harmony and an integrity and peace. The eye see it and there's a certain beauty. Beauty in a sense, in its most fundamental form, is nothing more than the perception of unity or total harmony in many different ways. That's what beauty is. The Banisham is absolute unity. Even to begin to see the Banisham or to see him in any sense produces a beauty which is like staggering, you see, because you're looking at the most perfect thing. The beauty or the sense of truth, you see, that emanates from that is like it's incredible. That's what it means, B'nei Miziv Shechina. That's what it means, B'nei Miziv. That's what it means, Nene Miziv Shechina. Now, this is not easy for you to understand at this point. It's an abstract thing. But that's, what do you mean? You have Hanoah. From what? Miziv Shechina. The Shechina is not the Banishim himself. It is not the Ein Sof. Remember we said that there's something called the Ein Sof, the Banishim Ba'atzmu Sof. We cannot be mastered that. But what the Banishim has done as projected a certain aspect of himself called Shechina. You see, that's something that the Neshama could be mastered or clue into. It can actually see it in a certain way, or be masking it. You see what I'm saying? Not him himself, but it's a kind of representation of him in a way. When the neshama takes a grasp of that Shechina, it's like incredible. It's like a high which cannot be madama.
But to begin with, it's created with it.
well, it's created because when it's massive, the awe or that light which emanates from the Rebbeinu Shalom, that pure, incredible intensity light and the beauty of that light, that itself gives such a simcha and such a light as to be unbelievable. You see, that's essentially what the neshama is being massive. That is what Olam Haba is, the hatova of that kind of thing. You see, that's the first answer. It's abstract. You see, we're not connecting to it yet. What? You cannot feel this yet. I haven't got finished the discussion yet. I'm just giving you the basic idea what it is and so on. You see what I'm saying?
So you're saying that the Kodesh has felt that?
Yeah. What? I'm sorry. What? No. I didn't say no. I didn't say anything about that. I'm simply saying what the neshama is getting from the Rebbeinu Shalom. Now, in the neshama itself, since it has no blocks, there's no barriers. It feels ruchnius by virtue of its own being, and when it feels the presence of the Rebbeinu Shalom, it's an ecstatic experience, such that there is nothing that can even come near this kind of thing. Okay, this is the first thing. That's the hatova that the Rebbeinu Shalom has in mind. You see, the perception of himself, which is absolute beauty, and just the experience of absolute beauty, which is essentially what all life is, really. When we come in the presence of tremendous beauty and tremendous greatness, like we look at the universe, we see pictures of the galaxies and the stars, and you stand back, but there's a certain sense of awe combined with beauty at the greatness of the thing and the incredible thing. Or sometimes if you see there's documentaries on the body or on different functioning and so on, you see how the thing works, like you stand back and so on, because being or the Bria as such is capable of projecting this of this feeling of awe which emanates from the perception. There's a certain incredible beauty about it. It's chokhmah, its power, its design is like unbelievable. And you get hanor just from seeing it and from understanding it. There's a certain feeling of it. You see what I'm saying?
So this is the type of it that God created
in a much higher level.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in with the Rebbeinu Shalom, it's the hatova that comes from the awareness of Neshama, from not something, one of his creations, but he himself, the Shekhinah himself. You see, and the awareness of the Shekhinah, the experience of the Neshama, of the Shekhinah by the Neshama, is an ecstatic experience.
That was his original intention in creating a neshama.
That's not his original content. That is what he wants.
That's what he wants.
Yeah. That is the greatest hanor that's shayach in the Bria, because it's the greatest form.
So that going the line that the purpose that Kodesh Baruch Hu is basically Tov U'metiv.
Yeah, that's the hatova.
That's hatova.
The hatova, the fundamental hatova that the Rebbeinu Shalom wants to give, is the perception or the awareness of himself.
Does it happen in Olam Haba?
No, only in Olam Haba. Only something.
But not on every level.
No. Only in Olam Haba. Now, Chazal called this perception dveikus. You see, what is dveikus? Dveikus is nothing more, for Neshama, dveikus is nothing more than the experience of the Rebbeinu Shalom. You see, the direct experience of the Rebbeinu Shalom, or the Shekhinah. You see, that experience connects the neshama to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and the experience produces a tremendous ecstasy from what we're talking about. That's essentially what the hatova is. Now, what does that have to do with this world? Because the strange matter is, it is possible to have that feeling even here, to a much stronger degree than you think. And the thing is, tzaddikim have tapped into it. That's why they can give up Olam Hazeh. They don't give up Olam Hazeh as a struggle. Really? You see, they give it up because they're glad to get rid of it. They're glad to get into this realm of a different type of experience. Now, what is this type of experience? Essentially, it's a very simple thing. When someone says to you, what does it mean to be a Jew? What is the tachlis of a Jew? What's the avodah? There's only one answer that you can really give. It's a very simple answer, and everything rests on it. And that's the answer is the following: the tachlis of a yid is to develop an intimate relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's it.
why is Hashem making it so hard? I mean, what's the purpose?
Wait a minute. You get into other things. We'll get on. That's another parsha, okay? But that's the Tachlis. The Tachlis is develop an intimate relationship with the Baruch Shalom.
But you have to have a strong willpower in order to go through it, in order to get there.
Well, to an extent. But wait a minute. What does it mean? First, what does it mean an intimate relationship with the Baruch Shalom? What does that really mean? An intimate. I'll tell you what it means. It means this. It means that you experience an actual feeling of love, of Ava. You see. But it's a real feeling. It's not a thought. It's not a concept. I have to love God. I love God in the brain. It's not. It's a real feeling. Now, where can we madama this to? Where can we parallel this to? Well, the Psukim in a sense it says that Yosis alayich alakoyach kim chosan al kala. The closest thing that this comes to is the love between a man and a woman. You see. Now, some of us are married, some of us are not, and so on. But, what other situation is, when a person experiences a real love between a man and a woman, it's a very instant feeling. Love between one person to another, but not so much between man and woman. You don't find this between men. It's a different type of chiva. I'm talking about real ava between a man and woman. It's a very strange thing. Like you find a lot of people when they first get engaged, they experience this and so on, or later on. What the feeling is that whenever the person thinks of the other partner or the other person, they get a certain simcha. Just thinking of the other person brings a certain pleasure. There's a pleasure in thinking about the other person, and not doing anything. You know what? And their mind automatically, it's like a drug almost. In a sense, in a when a person is really in love with someone else, in a real way, he wants to think of the other person, because the thought of that other person makes him feel like there's a simcha, but there's a tremendous simcha and there's a tremendous pleasure about it, just in the feeling alone. You see, that's the feeling of ava. So then, when a person has an intimate relationship with another person, even another person, chosan and kala, in that kind of sense, that's what's called the venkas, really. Now, you don't have to say a person, I want you to think of your kala, I want you to think of your husband all the time. People say, what do you mean? The person is ständig on my mind, really. I'm always thinking of the person. Because whenever I think of the person, I become emotionally excited. It's a tremendous feeling. There's the love produces the feeling of simcha, of joy, but there's a hana to it. It's an ecstatic hana. Now, the truth of the matter is, this is exactly what a person is capable of with the Baruch Shalom. You may say, how can I do that with the Baruch Shalom? Or my wife, or my kala, or my girlfriend, I can see her. I'm in Tizu. I have a relation with her. Where's the Baruch Shalom? There's nothing here. How could you fall in love with the abstract vacuum? You know what I mean? The truth of the matter is you can. You really can. You can fall in love with the essence or the idea in your mind, but it's true love. Why? Because this has to do with the koyach which is in the neshama. And it doesn't matter if the neshama is in or out of the guf. It does not matter. The neshama itself can feel the Baruch Shalom, even when it's in the guf. It doesn't matter. Except that when the guf, it's much tougher. He's got a lot of barriers between him and that kind of thing. Okay, we won't go into the reasons for those barriers. But the neshama is capable of becoming aware of the Baruch Shalom, not in thought, but in feeling, in hagosha, and developing an intense love of the Baruch Shalom.
You're saying the neshama has a different type of a sense, different sense?
When I mean the neshama in the guf, I'm talking about the person. I'm talking about you. You may not know this at this point in time, but it lies within you to develop that ecstatic experience. It lies within you. We won't go how. It almost lies within you to be able to do that. When it says over there, Shiviti Hashem Negli Summons, that thing. A person always has to think of the Baruch Shalom as next to him. Now, people, we think, what? Well, just like a person is always involved, maybe thinking, or he may be thinking about this or that, or woman, or whatever the story is and so on, right? Because his tivus or his being, his mamash, he gets drawn into that. But whether you know it or not, there is another set of feelings. There's another set of feelings where a person is mamash capable, you see, of becoming aware of the Baruch Shalom directly through an experience. You see. Now, what happens with a tzaddik has that kind of feeling. If I would say to you, you must always think of the Baruch Shalom, Shivita Hashem the next time. The person always has to put the Rebbeinu Shalom as in before his eyes and think of him. So for you to do it, you got to work on it. You mean? You got to think, God. I mean, you got to hold it. Why? Because the Rebbeinu Shalom is out of your experience. You know, he's not in you. He's not there. So for you to connect to him, you've got to go outside of yourself and continuously push yourself. So a tzaddik doesn't think of the Rebbeinu Shalom as an avodah. A tzaddik has developed a sense where he is intensely in love with the Rebbeinu Shalom. So automatically he's thinking about him all that. He can't get him out of his head. You see? So when he's got that feeling, he's not interested in Olam Hazeh really. When he gets to that kind of level, he's turned on. You see, let's talk about this feeling of what does it mean to love the Rebbeinu Shalom. And I say to you this because I don't know. I can only say I don't believe any of you have really ever experienced it. Some of you do have experienced it. You ever know sometimes when you're davening, sometimes you have a really good davening. Let's say on your kippur, and I know some other time, somehow you get into a davening and you really daven, and somehow you connect a little bit with the Rebbeinu Shalom. Somehow you feel like you're talking to someone there, and you can almost feel a presence. You don't see anything, but you could be margish a presence, almost in a sense. Anyone ever get that feeling? Sometimes you have a really good davening, where you feel there's a certain warmth inside you, there's a certain warmth, there's a certain closeness you feel to the Rebbeinu Shalom in a certain way sometimes. I don't know, each one has his own individual experience. That is a level of it. That is a level of it. But I make the statement that level is a very small level. That level could be magnified 1,000 times. And if any of you see, were ever to experience that thing, even 10 times if it's any degree and so on, you would never again be the same. Never. You see, it would leave such an indelible imprint on you that you could never be the same again. You could never look at this world in the same light. It's impossible after that. And you would begin with a powerful force on a kind of avodah. What is that? Because the strange thing, when a person falls in love with the Rebbeinu Shalom in that kind of sense, right? That feeling or the ecstasy that's associated with that kind of feeling is 1,000 times stronger than the most ecstatic experience that you can have when you fall in love with a woman. Now you say, but that's like incredible. And I tell you it's true. That's what tzaddikim experience. That's where it's at. You see, which is unbelievable. We think that the whole time he's sitting there like, he's sitting there, he doesn't eat much, and he's hovering like he's gay himself, and he goes, what's he doing over there? What's much talking, No, he looks, he says, why aren't you there with me? You see, he thinks, I'm a yid, and so on, because the Buddhism is not a concept to me, and he's not the object of a mitzvah, he is real. He's there because his eyes have opened up, the inner eyes have opened up, so that he experiences the Rebbeinu Shalom in such a way which is direct, and the ecstatic experience, believe me, is tens and hundreds of times anything that you can cough up in your life. That's what gives him the go to go on. Or else why would a man want to go into such a level of becoming a Kaddish? You see, that is the Me'in Elam Haba. You see, the neshama experiences at a much higher level because there's no mechitza, there's no body. There's a tremendous. The neshama is connected with the Rebbeinu Shalom, has direct vekas to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and experiences them on a direct level. And you know what I mean? So the feeling is incredible. There's a love to such a degree which is like unbelievable. But that love is combined with the hatzaga of his tremendous shlemus of the being of the Rebbeinu Shalom to some extent. So like it's mind-boggling. But everyone can feel it even here. You see. But to me, it's an inward thing. It's not something on the outside. You see, it's not something you can do by just davening, harder and harder and shocking faster and faster. It doesn't come from that way. The original one said of instant word, it says, "B'fi yishom t'sveimam, v'sifti tzadikim t'sbach, v'shon chasidim t'halol, v'kel kedoshim t'chadosh." There's different versions, Ashkenaz, from whatever the story is, and so on, and so on. So we see the same thing. It says that the yishorim, tzadikim, Chasidim and Kedoshim. We're seeing gradation there. Well, you see this. And we see, what's the difference in these four levels? Okay, so it says, each one is Meshaberech the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Yosha, who corresponds essentially to the, not the Fi, the mouth. Now, when you can see the mouth move, right? You can see the mouth move, the Fi. B'Shoin, a tzaddik doesn't do it with the mouth, he does it with the tongue. Now, the tongue is essentially invisible. You see, which means that the avodah that a tzaddik feels is already moving inward. You see, and when he opens his mouth, you see the tongue moving. You see. I'm talking the lips. I mean, the lips are visible. It's not the flea, it's not the whole mouth. It's the tiste. It's the lips. You see, it's the lips. Hasidim. It's the tongue. It's already invisible. Ubikev. Kedushin. It's totally invisible. What do you mean ubikev kedushin? It's hollow. What does it mean ubikev inside? That's the trick. It's not the neshama. No. Because that's what it is. If you have these four men sitting and davening, right? The difference between these four men is a difference. It's where the avodah is external or if it's internal. The greater the man, the more internal the avodah. Why? Because the greater the man, the more intimate his feeling is with the Baruch Shalom. The greater the love. The deepest inside, the more invisible it is.
So he doesn't have to go with the assistant or
be careful. Because a Kodesh, an emes of Kodesh, when he reaches that level, is such a man that his experience of his awareness of the Baruch Shalom is an ecstatic love. He experiences directly. He's always thinking of the Baruch Shalom. You see, that's the greatest. That's the greatest. He is like he's not like the Baruch Shalom is never gone. When he eats, there's the Baruch Shalom. Whatever he does, there's always the awareness of the Baruch Shalom himself. See, if you go to a very Kodesh, you know, look at him very carefully. Look at his eyes. Look at his mind. You see, you'll see eventually. You'll see that a very Kodesh, a very interesting person. He's here and he's not here at the same time. That's the kind of thing they give. They hear and they're not. When they hear, they hear because they hear. He's not here because he's responding to two sets of stimuli at the same time. He's here, he's talking to you, and he's not here because while he's talking to you, there's a tremendous awareness. It's an experience, it's not a thought. And there's this tremendous love, chiba for the Baruch Shalom that he has in him, that he's always aware of while he's talking to you. That's what's experienced here. And in essence, that's what the Hatova is. What the Baruch Shalom wants. But you can feel it to some extent, even here. Now, how does a person come to such a zach? The first way to come to such a zach is to know that such a zach is sayach. If you don't know that such a thing is possible, or there is such a thing, how can you go towards such a thing? The only thing you can go towards is u'metiv tzadikim. You know, the piyishon. You know, you avoid it is what's called as a path. Put on mitzvahs, you know, and you're sitting here, whatever the story is, you know, you're always thinking the mitzvahs and the chetzonis of the mitzvahs. But that's what you know, you see. But that's not what it is. It's further in, that's all. But unless you understand what it means, the care of Kedoshim, how can you even go after such a madrega? You can't. You don't even know that such a zach exists. You see. But the answer is that it does exist. It's like Moshe Rabbeinu, like he says in the Torah, Mo Hashem Shoel Mimcha. What does the Baruch Shalom ask you? Kim li yira, except to fear him. Yira. What do you mean yira? That yira, fearing him, is not a yira of an issue that he's going to punish you. It's a yira haremimus. It's the fear that comes out of an appreciation of who he is. But it's like standing in front of a melech, and you feel the presence of the melech. You must feel it. Of the presence of that melech, and there's like an awe of the majesty of that being. And by some of the ideas that we were talking about last week about who the Baruch Shalom is, if you understand what it's saying, you can get a sense of what's considered absolute malchus, of total sovereignty, or absolute power, and you can get a feeling of awe of what that is. You see, but imagine if you had that feeling all the time, and that was combined with V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha. You see. That's the beginning of a real Ovid. You see. Like, you know, it's interesting. One sort of mindset which shows you the madregas of tzaddikim, the way they deal with this kind of thing. There was one of what's a very big tzaddik he was riding in a carriage. I don't know, he was riding in a carriage and And people went out to meet him. He was sitting in the carriage, and the driver was coming toward the city. And as the driver was coming to the city, people heard that the tzaddik was coming. They came out to meet the tzaddik. And tzaddik was at the window, and he saw all these people coming out, and he felt a tinge of gaiva. People coming out covered, so, and he was very disturbed by that. So he said to himself, he wanted to combat it. He said, "What is this?" He said, "What is this? What am I being? What am I getting high over here? What, these people are coming out to Mechabed me? Who am I? I'm a nothing. I'm a bus of a dumb. And when I'm dead, I'm nothing. And what is this? I'm being drawn by horses and by wood." He went into the whole thing, and what he did was he went into the whole situation of him and the horse and the carriage, and he said, "This is so disgusting. What they come with Chadik, bones and flesh." And he got to such a point where he was so disgusted that he mamish vomited. That's how he dealt with this tinge of gaiva coming up. He said to himself, "What are they being mechabed?" So what he did was he wanted to feel the covered. So what he did was he dissolved the entity. That the entity is not worthy of covered. What is it? So they told the story to the Rishon, to Rabbi Shlomo Rishon, a very big Kaddish, that lived about 150 years ago, and he said, they told him the situation of what the tzaddik is, and he said, the emes is, I would have handled the problem in a different way. He said, how would I have handled the problem? He said, let's He said the following. Let's say there's a man who's walking in the garden, and he's walking with the king, and he's the prime minister. He's walking with the king. The king is a monarch. We're not talking about a nominal king. We're talking about a real king, a monarch, and there's a prime minister. One of the ways, just a minister, as well as he's walking in the garden, and some guy comes over, walks through the garden, and doesn't recognize the king, but he recognizes the prime minister. So he goes to the prime minister, and he doesn't know the man. He goes to the prime minister, and he says, "Oh, my lord, my master," and he obeisance, gives a quick bow, and so on and so forth. How did the prime minister feel? The prime minister suddenly gets red in the face. Because the king is standing right next to him, and he's doing this now, he's mavuyish in front of the king. Like he's saying, he says, stupid. This is the king over here, if I was alone, okay, but this is the king, I can't accept this thing. I can't get turned on by this, because I feel like a fool. And so, the reason is it's the same thing. If I would have said, I said, well, it's nice. No, I would like to appreciate the cover. How can I appreciate this cover? I sense the B'nishim all the time. What am I? You see what I'm saying? Connected this presence. What can I accept? You see what I'm saying? So it's interesting how you see the different madregas in tzaddikim, in kedoshim. What? But it shows you that even tzaddikim have different levels. But the different levels are not their Soma, who's Soma, he keeps the more mitzvah, he goes and he buys a lulav and esrog, which is unbelievable. He pays $150 for his lulav esrog. This man is a tzaddik, and this guy pays $75. That's not where it's at. You know what I mean? It's not beper, it's bekerev. It's a level of truth. Who's more intimate with the B'nai Shalom? Let's see. Who's more intimate with the B'nai Shalom? And this other tzaddik, the original, was such I can't accept this. You see, because the B'nai Shalom is a reality to me. He's not a figment of my imagination. He's not something which says in a sefer there is a God. He's real. You see, he's secure about the existence of God. People who have that kind of experience don't need to know whether God exists or not. They know it. They feel it, exactly. And that's why it's the highest level of emunah. Because emunah is nothing more than, you see, what is emunah? Really, emunah is the direct experience of the B'nai Shalom. And once that opens up, that eye opens up inside, you feel what all those years you've been trying to prove. You understand? Yeah. What?
So how do you get it?
We understand everything, roll on here,
From what you've been saying, it sounds like,
You cannot get it. Well, how do you get the thing? I don't want to cover that kind of thing. But the fundamental thing into that is to physically understand what I'm talking about, what it is, and that such a thing is possible. You see, that's number one, and it's defined simply as a level of who is closer to the Baruch Shalom. You know, you find, for example, like in the Tanoim, there were many madregas of Tanoim, and so on. Like there was once a Tana called Choni Amagel. You know, he was a very interesting person. He lived very early, even before the time of the Zugos. And he was an interesting person. He was a very big tzaddik. And when it didn't rain, he used to take a stick and in the dust go around and stay in the center. He would stay in the center, in the circle, right? In the circle, and he would say, I refuse to come out of the circle until you give rain. And so on. And then he refused to go out, and then it started giving rain a little bit, a couple of drops. And then he said, that's not enough. And then it would come down, and then he would leave the circle. So Shimon ben Shattach said, when he heard this, who was a Nossi, he said, Shimon ben Shattach, he said, if I ever heard, Azach Chutzpah, to the Bonisham, if I ever heard anyone do such a thing, I would put him in Chayim. He said, but how can I put Choni Amagal in Chayim? And so he's a Ben Yedid to the Bonisham. I mean, he talks to Bonisham, not because he's saying the Bonisham, you know, like this. He's like his Ben Bias, they live in the same house. Like, to him, the Bonisham was like you and me. You know what I mean? He talks like that. And so on. And Taka, Choni Amagal was so big that when he went into the Beis HaMikdash, the Beis HaMikdash lit up. Normally it's reverse. That's how big he was. You know, that's incredible, the amount of Kedusha. That Kedusha, it's the intimacy and the love that he had. In fact, you know, there was one Tana which is like, this is the thing which motivated. There's one said we can't understand it. You know, we learn Gemaras and sometimes there's like these incredible ma'asim, and I just like to bring some of this stuff over just to show you what's going on. This is what the Gemara was talking about. All the Gemara doesn't say this directly, but there was a ma'aser there with Matisur ben Cheresh. It's a mind-blowing ma'aser. But Matisur ben Cheresh, he's never mentioned anyway. I don't know if he's ever mentioned the Hamantan Mishnah. Whoever heard of Matisur ben Cheresh? So ma'aser Gemara brings down that once. The Yisitwa Acha, the Yeto ran in front of the Baruch and said, this man Matisur ben Cheresh, who is he? You know, Ma'ulu Fanecha. What he was saying is, what do you think of him? I mean, that, you know, so the Baruch said, Tzadik Gama. Baruch says that, Tzadik Gama. That's a real step. When the Baruch says Tzadik Gama, so the Yeto says, let me see. So the Baruch says, okay, but don't touch his life. You know. So, you know, the Yeto runs down, and suddenly he runs down, and he puts himself in the form of a woman. A woman with such incredible beauty that the Gemara says that since Norma, the wife of the sister of Tubal Cain, such a woman of incredible beauty has not appeared on the earth. And God knows what she must have looked like. Okay, whatever, I don't know what Norma, sister of Tubal Cain looked like, but I can imagine she must have been some stunning thing. Okay, so she comes in front of Matisur ben Cheresh, and he's walking along, and he sees her, or considers him, and suddenly he sees her, and he turns to the side. Goes the other direction. She comes around, she moves aside. Turns around, so he couldn't, everywhere he was, what do you call it, the Yetor, and then on. So Matisur ben Cheresh saw that he couldn't stand with this thing, and so he said to his Talmud, bring me a hot iron. You know, so he brought him a hot iron with coals, and he put this in coals, and he blinded himself. Well, come on, he blinded himself. Well, he didn't put it, he put it in front of his eyes, and he damaged the retina. I don't know if you know, if you take a hot iron, red hot, and you just put it in front of the eyes, the intensity of the heat or the light kills the retina. And he blinded himself. Look, the Yetzirah saw this thing. He almost got frightened, and he ran up. To the Shemayim, like the Banishim's right, Tzadik Goma, and it's like, it's not a joke. So the Banishim said, he said before the Malach, and he said, go down and give him back his sight. So he came down, and he said to Matisur ben Cheresh, I have come, he says, Matisur ben Cheresh says, who are you? I'm before, I come to give you back the sight. So Matisur says, I don't want it back. Because I don't want to go to Satan Nesoyan again. So the Banishim said, I have give you my haftocha, you will never again go to Satan Nesoyan. Now you see the question, how does a guy do, okay, what? If you get haftocha, you'll never have Satan Nesoyan again. How does a man do that? How does a human being do a zazach?
Refuse their eyesight.
Whatever, to take out his eyesight, I mean, you know. What do you mean? Because he's a religious guy? Because he bought an incredible Esrog the year before? You mean? He bought a set of tefillin which is $800, the best set of tefillin you can buy in Yerushalayim. That's what made him this kind of guy that can do his Allah. What? Whatever the story is, like who is he so they can do the thing? The answer is what I'm saying. Because Matis Yobin Cheresh was connected to Baruch Shalom, like saw him like you saw me. Same thing. And he felt this kind of thing. Connected that experience. You see, how could you know? That's what gives that. How else can such a thing? You see, we are so trained looking at the Gemara. We're looking at these Tanoim, these Tzadikim, this and that, so on. Rabbi Kiva, he's being ripped apart and he's saying, Shema Yisrael, what is this? So who are these men? Are these Malachim? Malachim. They're not Malachim, they're humans, they're people. So we try to say, so what is within the human experience that could explain this kind of an event, or this kind of a thing, that a man does such a thing? And that's the thing. What a man does is that kind of feeling. And there were thousands and thousands of people. I mean, many Yidden had this. This was something which is the prerogative of many people. You see. Now, let's again understand this. What kind of feeling? What does it mean to be intimate with the Baruch Shalom? And I'll tell you can understand it yourself. Very simple. Huh? Feeling. And I'll tell you what the feeling is. Very simple. I will define it to you operationally. Very simple what it is. Okay? You all have parents. Okay. You all have someone. I don't know. I want each of you to think of an individual in your life who you mamish love a great deal. I don't care if it's your wife, if it's your brother, if it's your mother, if it's your father, whoever it is. Someone who you have a very deep tesha with. Your grandmother, your baba, or your children, whatever the story is. You do the deepest one. Okay? Right? Someone comes over to this person and harms him or hurts him. Bad. How do you feel? You feel terrible, don't you? Right? Terrible, right? The day that you have that kind of feeling about the Baruch Shalom is the day when you have begun to reach that madriga. That's the goal. That's the objective. No, when you do a chet, you run the Yom Kippur chet to see if you feel bad. You feel bad. You know why? You feel bad because you displeased him. Not because he's the king of this net. Because you love him so much that it disturbs you. To disturb him. Mamash disturbs you. If that person who you love so much was angry at you, or not angry, was hurt by you, let's say you did something that hurt that person very bad. You did something that hurt the person. How would you feel? Terrible, right? Okay. The day that you go to Yom Kippur with that kind of feeling is the day that you begin to taste what this is all about. And it is possible. It is very, very possible.
You have very powerful forces working against you.
You have a lot of forces working against you. It is. But I'm just describing. And conversely, the same thing. The day that you feel. What happens when you take that loved person and you do something good for him, right? You feel very good. You know? In that sense. The same thing. When you do a mitzvah, you feel a simcha. Why? Not because you did a mitzvah. You did it because you were masameach the Baruch Shalom. Because he's the simcha. That's it. It's a very high madriga, obviously.
So what is the level of sincerity?
The level of sincerity. It's a level of sincerity. It's a level of intimacy with the Baruch Shalom. It's a level of it's a level of what?
But you're saying it's not how good the mitzvah and how much it's what you really
feel about it, right? Exactly. And that's what we said when Moshe Rabbeinu puts on tefillin. So he knows the kavanah of the mitzvahs. Kavanah, it's not kavanah of the mitzvahs. No. It's not kavanah of the mitzvahs. It's not that he's not keeping all the shameless in Kabbalah. It's not what it is. It's that when he puts on tefillin, he knows what he's putting on tefillin. He feels it. He does it with a simple. That's what it means to shema. That's what it shema. That's what it shema is. You said it before, but I didn't want to give it. I didn't want to deal with it because you didn't know what does it mean. Right. Now you know what it means. That's what the shema means. I don't care about these fancy interpretations and definitions of what Lishma is. Lishma means if you don't do it for cover, and you don't do it for money, and you don't do it for your Rebbe, and you don't do it for your parents, you do it because the Banishim was Matzavi you, and you do it because you want to be a firm guy. That's a low level. That's a level low. Lishma means that you want to do it because the Mamash gives him a simcha, and he gives you a simcha. So you say to Banishim, your simcha is my simcha.
So to do an errand for someone who you love.
Like the Baditchev once said, the Levi Yitzhak once said that you could see it. He said to me once, he was davening, he said to Baruch Hashem, he says, even if I suffer, what does it matter if I suffer? As long as I suffer for you. What is he talking about? What is it, a former statement? A machzik form? He says, well, we all want to hear. I mean, we're expecting what the Baditchev should say. No, because that's what a Baditchev is. And you can see from that statement who the Baditchev is. That tells you more than anything. All the other stories and this and that tells you incredible. Because that shows you his connection to the Baruch himself. It's a real thing. You see, it's not a fantasy, and it's not a concept. It's not what someone told them, and it's not a tradition. It's not a family heirloom or whatever the story is. It's real. You see. Now, do we all understand what I'm saying? Basically, it's a very simple concept, and it's a very real concept. Now, can you do it? You can. It's not as far away as you think it is. It sounds like it's incredibly distant. It is not. So why is it not? Because the distance of the thing to each person mainly lies in his total ignorance of that thing. You see, that's one of the main things. Once the person has realized that, then he realizes that he's got to begin to work to develop that relationship. So every mitzvah becomes different. A mitzvah is not something you got to do, because it's the time of the year to do it, or it's the time of the day, or you just got to do it, or else you would be a bad Jew, No. The mitzvah is an opportunity to get closer to him, to begin to relate.
The more you do, the closer you get.
Yeah, the more you do. That's your answer. That's how it's done. If you begin to look at mitzvahs in that light, you will begin to develop that. And of course, the mitzvah which is foremost among them in producing that koyach is tefillah. Is davening. Because what is davening? Davening is talking to him. That's really what it is. It's not saying Shemona Esrei 3 times a day for the purpose of saying Yud Gimel, Yud Ches, Brachos.
Avi said before that the biggest phrase that you can get to Rebbe has to be quiet.
Yes.
How does that statement?
Because the truth is, the biggest thing is to be quiet in terms of hasaga, because you can't be masagim, but you can be malgishim, and that's the most definite and direct way. And that's quiet. Bekev kedushin, tisharo. No, what's being said. What's being said? So, the object is to turn off here and to turn on here. In a nutshell. You know what I mean? Can't be masigim, say nothing. But feed him here. And that's what madregas are. Now, it doesn't mean a person becomes a dovik or feels this after he's a kaddish. Not true. You see, a person can feel this much, much earlier. It has to do with being aware of the objective and adopting a certain attitude. You see, and the first place to start isn't tefillah. And the first thing you daven to is you say straight to the Baruch Hashem, look, you see, I heard a very interesting thing about this kind of thing, The truth of the matter is, I really don't know who you are, but I'm very interested in introducing myself to you. Sounds strange, And the thing is, you say to Baruch Hashem, there's a tremendous gap between us. I don't feel you really. I feel like I want to read something else or do something else. I really don't want to be here. But the truth of the matter is, even though my feeling is someone else, I want to start on this road. You see. And what you do is you say this, I'm asking you to give me that koyach to go on that road. Because fundamentally, the only one who can really open you up is the Baruch Hashem himself. So you have to be continuously in a scholar, to be zeicha, that the Baruch Hashem should do such a thing.
No,
in other words, what I'm saying is, you don't go to davening and you say, well, I'm in a good mood and so on, and I'm a daven and I feel good about it. You don't do that. You daven even if you're not in a great mood and so on. But while you're davening, you say, look, you say to Baruch Hashem, I don't feel like I'm in a great mood. The truth of the matter is, I can't daven really that greatly, but I want you to give me the koyach eventually.
You don't have to daven.
Right? You have to daven because you must say it. You must. But even if you don't daven with kavana, a tremendous kavana, you still you say that. In other words, you and the Baruch Hashem understand something which is very interesting between the two. You got a certain deal going. And you know what that deal is? The deal is like this. It isn't. You feel this, look, I don't know who you are. I really don't know who you are. And the truth of the matter is, from what I've heard, I'm not very pleased. All the time. Seriously. I hear all kinds of stuff about, what you've done, the horrible things you've done. It's a shocking statement sometimes. And I'm very angry with you sometimes. To the half time I don't understand what you want from my life. You don't talk like that, but that's what you're feeling like. That's why you can't daven. Half time I'm being angry with you, and I'm annoyed with you, because I don't like what you just did to me the other day. Then I don't like what this happened, and I feel like violent sources and that. And I don't like what you did to the Jews in World War II, war here. I like whatever the story is. And I don't know who you are really, and that's what it is. But the truth of the matter is, I want to know who you are. But I need your help. Because I can't do it myself. Like the Baruch Shem says, you daven to me in that way, and I will help you. What's that?
You're going to help him to be Yiras Shamayim?
How
come Yiras Shamayim?
No. Yiras Shamayim is the will to be a Yiras Shamayim. That the Baruch Shem can't do. If you don't daven to the Baruch Shem for such a thing, you're not going to get anywhere. You see. But in the way that you want to go, He will guide you. You see. If you start, you see, He will be, and the very physically. Just open me the opening of a needle, and I will open you the space of an ulam, whatever the situation is, whatever the story is, and so on. That's what the Baruch says. You sit in mishtatel, and I will be mamshech your neshama in your body to be masik, to be marvelous thing. But it's not going to be easy, because as soon as the Yetzer Hara gets wind of it, oh no, not this guy, suddenly your life is going to get a little harder. Strange thing. As soon as a person wants to be Ovid, he goes into the parsha of becoming. But then you also don't have the Tov U'metiv.
You have something.
When it comes to business, it's never thought like that. Them guys made a better business. I'll do him. I'll put money in advertising and so on. I gotta be the biggest. Whatever. So not him. I won't be as big as him. But you have to remember that your business only lasts a couple of years, 30, 40, 50 years. So when you're on this madrig and this guy's up there, you're going to look at that guy for the rest of existence. You see? And with the total jerk that you were, to let that go, That's what it is. But the thing is, you see, I don't mean to say it's going to get very hard. Each one according to his madrig. I don't know what each one is holding. It's hard to say, and some people are more closer and some people are more further. But everyone has the shaykhs to that kind of parsha. Now you have shaykhs to it. You see. Begin to develop this closeness to Baruch Shem, and that's what you really want. You will begin to get a siyata d'shmaya in a very strange way, and your whole Judaism, your whole Yiddishkeit will begin to change in a way. You see, it will, but you have to be very persistent, and you have to realize that it is there and it can be gotten. You see, there are many times, who knows? I don't know. Each person is different, but it's shayach, and that there could be different things. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you don't feel like it. But you have to be in action. And eventually it will begin to open up slowly, and you will see, you begin to feel the first ray, you see, and suddenly your awareness begins to change. You're suddenly cognizant, you're aware of something you never aware before. Like it's different, the davening is different. For some strange reason, I enjoy davening. I want to daven. I miss it when I'm not davening. That's really what it is. You see, that's the slow way. You begin to get a certain simcha, a certain hanun in davening itself. It's not a shlep, something drags you to daven, something holds you there. So when you get that kind of thing, you want to daven and so on. But it gets really bad, because if it really becomes strong, it becomes bad, because you want to stop everything and just concentrate on that. Then you got a lot of problems. Okay, but that's something else. Okay, it is a problem. I knew guys that had that problem, serious problems. But the truth of the matter, that's what happens. But the truth of the matter is this, is that it also goes. It doesn't stay. What happens is, it never disappears. Never. Once it's there, it comes down with a certain level, depends on intensity, comes down. It can be gradual by some people, and some people it comes down in an explosion. And once it's there, you see, it's very disruptive, and then it leaves a couple of days later. It may last a day, and then it leaves, or 2 days or a week, but then it goes. It goes, you see. But when it goes, it leaves behind the memory and the remnant of it, and the person is never the same. And then he has to keep at it, and then he comes back down again, and it stays a little longer. You know, it's got all these little shtickler how it works. Each person is different, but that's what it is. You see. But what you have to see if you want to get this, you see, it's not that difficult. When I say, it is difficult. It's difficult, but it's not an intricate, complex path as such. You see, you have to realize that it's there, number one, and that each mitzvah becomes an opportunity to make it appear. You see, that's what it is. Like it says, the essence of the whole thing is dvekus. To be dovek, you see, to feel and to experience the Rebbeinu Shem in an intimate, very close way. You see, and that's the whole avodah. I do not understand personally. Like I've gone through yeshivas and this and that and so on. Yeshivas never talk about this. For some strange reason, it's ignored. It's ignored.
So like to be ignored or overlooked?
I don't know what it is. I think it's lost. Truth of the matter is, it's lost. They don't have it. No.
They follow
unfortunately, that's what you find. So when I asked this question before, I'm going to shut it off again. So therefore, that's what halacha is. Halacha is the doing of the mitzvahs. That's one type of learning Torah. But then there's another type of Torah, which is hashkafa, or to understand the hashkafa, to understand the Rebbeinu Shalom, to understand what he's saying and why he wants this. This is the limud which is done in the Medrashim, in Agartha, in hashkafa, in Kabbalah. It's a it's a different thing. Those are the two limudim. The study of halacha will not bring you to a high madrega of Yerushalayim. It will not, because that's not what its purpose is. The study of halacha is to give you the information that you need in order to behave like a Yerushalayim. A tzaddik is not a behavioral definition. The definition of a tzaddik is not a person who keeps so and so many mitzvahs. That's what everyone thinks. You see, that's what everyone thinks. Everyone thinks, what is a tzaddik? Somebody keeps kol haTorah kula. That's not what a tzaddik is. But you cannot be a tzaddik unless you keep kol haTorah kula. But that's not the essence of a tzaddik. You see, a tzaddik is someone who has a certain level of relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. Yeah.
Why?
Naturally.
Yeah. It comes with power. He knows how to use them.
You're saying you can't be a tzaddik unless you're Mekayim kol haTorah kula. Is that just because if you're not Mekayim kol haTorah kula, then you're not doing like the Eibishter wants? Remember, you're missing a certain closeness. So don't tell us to do so much, and let's feel the closeness anyway.
No.
Why are the two?
Why do we have to do so many things? Why do we have to do so many things in order to come close to Him?
Yeah. Okay. So the thing like this. So that sounds like also the two of the Torah. Each of the mitzvahs has a certain tachlis. Each of the mitzvahs is designed to activate this mechama and this bechira. Basically, the Rebbeinu Shem says, "V'rasi Yetzirah, v'rasi Torah tavlan." The only thing which will deal with the Yetzirah is the Torah. That's the only thing. You see. And in its tzura, in the form of tayag mitzvahs. That's what it is. I don't want to go into this in detail, what it's talking of each mitzvah and so on and so forth. What I'm talking about in terms of general, that the limit of Torah has two parts. There's the limit of halacha, which is supposed to tell a person how to be a tzaddik, not to become a tzaddik. Halacha doesn't tell you how to become a tzaddik, it tells you how to be a tzaddik. You see the difference? It gives you the rules how to behave. Once you're a tzaddik, how do you behave? And what the opportunities are to become a tzaddik. But the halacha doesn't tell you how to become a tzaddik. Hashkafa, avodah, that's what tells you how to become a tzaddik. You see, and even that doesn't tell you. It only tells you the information you need to know. It tells you that there's something called devekus. It tells you that there's something called certain relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. And how do you actually become a tzaddik? By combining these two things together. By being over the mitzvahs. And over these things, knowing the mitzvahs from the halacha, knowing the hashkafa, and so on. Putting it all together and moving in that direction to actual avodah, that a person builds himself up from level to level, and is a madrega being. A tzaddik is a level of awareness. That's what it is. A tzaddik is not a level of Maisim. It's not. A tzaddik and a kodesh is not a level, or is not an aspect of how much mitzvahs you do or Maisim fundamentally. It is a level of being, you see. And the level of being means to the degree that you are aware of the Bnei Shalom. But it's a level of being. Because a tzaddik who's aware of the Bnei Shalom, let's take a kodesh for example. A kodesh. Kodesh has a certain hasod of the Bnei Shalom, experientially. A tzaddik has a lower. A kodesh is a different being than a tzaddik. I don't know if you know that. It's not the same person. They're not the same human being. You see, it's the same difference as the boy who was born blind. The baby's born blind. A person who can see is different than a person who cannot see. Because in one person, the person is missing a whole set of experiences that they have no shaykhs to. So there's something missing in the very manifestation of being. You see, the same thing. Each madrega is a different level of being. A kodesh has no shaykhs to a tzaddik. You see. Because a kodesh is magish, where a tzaddik can't begin to be magish. It's like we told you about malachim, that a neshama later on in the Olam Haba could be masig what a malach cannot. It's not there, but a malach cannot do it. Period. You see, in the case of a tzaddik, you can. It depends, because you have b'chiyur to go up. But fundamentally, the differences in the madreg of Yidden or Yerushalayim or tzaddikim and kedeshim lie in their level of their awareness, or more fundamentally, in how intimate they are with the Bnei Shalom. That's all it's at. That naturally manifests itself in the avodah that they do, the kinds of mitzvahs they do, the way they do the mitzvahs, everything comes out. That's how you can see it. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? I want to make sure this is very clearly understood. I don't want anyone to come back and say, you said that I'm not supposed to learn Torah. I never said that. You understand? Or you said that the whole yeshiva shivelt is wasting your time sitting and learning halacha. I also never really said that. You see, what I'm basically doing is putting everything in proper perspective. And what the tachas of each thing, so that there's a balance. There's something called mishkal hachasidus, you know? Like, the person who sees a woman drowning and says, I'm not going to go in there because I'm not allowed to touch a woman, is a chosid shaita, the Gemara calls him. You see what I'm saying? Because in other words, you want to be fine, but you have to have a seichel. What does that seichel mean? The ability to know different demands and to judge priorities. You see? You know, what comes first, what comes second? They're called prioritization. That is the meaning of chokhmah. You know, there's an in a mitzvah. One mitzvah is mavat another mitzvah. When, where, you know? These are all prioritizations. You see, certain mitzvahs are mavat others and so on. These are priorities. The Buddha gave many mitzvahs, but there are also rules and regulations and what to determine what to do at any point in time. It's the same thing with the avodah. A tzaddik is someone who knows when to do what, and he's not confused or fooled by extra frumkeit and less frumkeit. It says in davening that when the Yetzer comes, most people think the Yetzer comes and says, come with me to 42nd Street. Come with me. Or, come on, forget about learning and go sit and work the whole day, make extra money and come with me, to Saks Fifth Avenue, I'm going to buy a fantastic piece of furniture. You know? Come with me to Bloomingdale's and going to buy, you know? That's one Yetzer. But there's another Yetzer that comes in a record, you see, with payas. And one sits hanging out with a long white beard, and he comes herzlich zu Rabjit, lacht an emsef from a Yid. I want you to sit and learn all day long. Forget about Parnasa. You see, forget. So the man says, but I don't have the koyach to sit and learn all day long. He says, I can't. I have to make a Parnasa, but I don't have the koyach. I'm not a kind of guy that can sit and learn all day long. Don't worry about it. Do it. So the guy sits and does it, and he's broken. That Yetzer is the Yetzer that attempts to make you do more than you're capable of. You see, there's the Yetzer that wants to make you do less than you're capable of. And like it says, there's a double guy here. There's the Yetzer. Who's the one milefoneinu is the Yetzer that's telling me to go to 42nd Street. You know, that's the visible Yetzer. And it's hard enough to fight with him. But then there's a guy in the back there who's a kodesh. The guy's coming as an Elech Hayid and wants to make me do more than I'm capable of, that my madrig is not holding. And what happens to me? I try and do that, and I fall down even further than I was before. And then I say, fair. These guys who sit and learn. You can't sit and learn all day. All you do is battle all day long, because he wasn't on the madrig to do it. So therefore, avodah, to be an Ovid, or to understand to become a tzaddik means two things. It's not only to understand the goals of what's involved, but it's to know how to establish priorities. It's also to be able to assess where you're holding, and depending on where you're holding, what you can do, where you can take an opportunity, where you can take an opportunity. All this is a big chokhmah. It's a chokhmah. That's why the Mesilas Yesharim Rav says, he says, you think Yiras Shamayim is nothing? Yiras Shamayim is the ikar chokhmah. There is no chokhmah, but you think it's hard to matar to machlokes Rambam Ravid. That's nothing. You see, to become a tzaddik is really difficult because it's a chokhmah. You see, I try to give you information to make it easier in a sense, or understand at least what they're doing. But the truth is a chokhmah, because at every point in the world, you got a yetzer in front of you and back of you, and you don't know. You see, which one is he? You see, so that's the thing. Now that chokhmah we're not dealing with here, but that's the chokhmah of avodah and so on. And that itself. What we're dealing over here is what is a tzaddik. You see, why a tzaddik is a tzaddik. What motivates him. You see, and why one should become a tzaddik if one can. You see, that's what we're concerned about over here. We're not centrally concerned of how to become a tzaddik. You see, in any kind of sense. That's the thing, and so on. But what I really brought this entire thing is to get a better understanding, a better foothold of what a Yiras Shamayim is, and what a neshama is in terms of the hatova of Olam Haba. You see, it's not that different. There are certain similarities, but except that the Olam Haba, the experience of the neshama, the devekas, the hasogan, the hagosh is so powerful as to be an incredible ecstasy. Any questions? Either everyone understood what I'm talking about, or nobody understood what I'm talking about.
Why does it sound so unclear now?
Unclear? Is it unclear? Is it unclear?
No, it doesn't seem so simple. Like you made it sound so simple.
It is simple.
If it would be simple, everybody would do it.
It is simple, and it's not simple. It's simple in the sense that the objective can be clear, and you can start working at that objective. But you have to realize that along the way there are a lot of pitfalls. You see, there are pitfalls, and that so it becomes a little more complex. You see,
has to be. Is it only through pitfalls that we can reach it? I mean, what I'm saying is. God has to make the pitfalls.
Is there a smooth
God
way?
has to make the pitfalls, or could he just...
Next week we shall discuss what pitfall is and why the Bonishim did this. Why he made pitfalls. Why is there something called nisyonos?
Stay tuned.
That's what
So what is this he said, that if you start working towards it, you get a siyata d'shmaya, but then it gets more difficult?
The devekas.
You get both of them?
What? You get a feeling. You get both. What happens is you get a siyata d'shmaya, but to go higher and higher, because it's the madregas. You're going up this way. You see. So to start and to get a certain madregas, in the beginning it's very hard. I want you to know the hardest part is really the beginning, because once you get involved into this kind of thing, there's a momentum in it. You see.
Get richer.
What? Yeah. Once you feel $1 million, you want the second million. Once you get that taste. So it really, in a certain way, it gets easier, but it also gets more difficult in a sense because there are more nisyonos. It becomes, look, to become a tzaddik is difficult. To become a kaddish is extremely difficult. Let's face it. Why? How many kaddishim are there out there? So obviously there are many madregas, you see. But to reach a level of being a yoshin, to be thinking, is not, it's easily within a person's to reach. It's not, lo mishamayim me.
Yeah, but how does a person who is not at that level say, that we have to rely on the belief that yes, once you reach that level, you're going to get some kind of a ecstasy, or as you called it.
Yeah.
But if a person doesn't feel it now, he has to blindly do it and hope that he's going to get it.
Yeah, he has to believe what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah. But the truth of the matter is, everyone feels it to a little degree. That's why I said to you to think of the times when you're davening, or sometimes, or maybe once a year, whatever the story. Sometimes there's a certain point when a person sometimes feels a little closer to the feeler or to the Bonishim who he's talking to.
True.
That is the beginning, and when he feels that, he feels a certain warmth. There's a slight beginning. You see, so I'm not, a guy doesn't feel that at all, has got to believe it blindly. But I'm not talking from my head. As I state, learn now when you learn Gemara, learn Midrashim. Begin to learn these things, and you begin to understand it in a totally different way. You begin to understand who these people were that are on the Gemara. You understand what Tanoim were and what Levim.
You can understand the mices of
what their mices was when they talk, who they were. It's an incredible thing. The madrigas are staggering. You see,
And when we were tortured, why we behaved the way we behaved.
Yeah, even with nefesh.
So that's what's called Mesiras Nefesh.
What's that?
So that's what Mesiras Nefesh is. Once a person reaches that level.
Look, a lot of Yidden reach those levels. Don't think that big goyim. A lot of Yidden reach that level. Those Yidden who went to Europe, Ram died in Europe. Those Pashto Yidden, many of them reach those madrigas. I don't know, you can reach a really solid level of Vegas, fast and early. You'd be amazed. And so to reach a level, a high level of thing. There are levels which are very high. There are levels which are so high, like they say in the Noam Melech, sometimes you would get, when he's sitting in Vegas, he would get to such a level where he would have to hold to the table, or else he would feel like he's almost about to die. It was so ecstatic, like it was almost like one separates from his body. He couldn't take. Yeah, he had to touch it to just keep.
To
get a sense of the reality. That's a very hard way, and the hanor of that is incredible. The ecstasy, you cannot know what that is, and if you feel, but once you experience that, you will never be the same, never again. And there are many levels of it, and this is how tzaddikim tick. That's what it is. That's how they tick, and that's what they are. They're a strange breed. They really are. But the Rebbeinu wants everyone to be that strange breed. That's what it means. When he says Li, Klal Kadeshim to you, Mamlechas Kahanim, Am Skula. And what does it say there? What does it think about it? It's saying, Ki mi yesh am shehashem korov elav. What nation on earth is such that the Rebbeinu is so close to them?
So now these things start making sense.
What do you mean close to them? The Rebbeinu gave the koyach to every Yid to be magish this personally.
So Goyim have their neshamas?
Yeah, but the different types. But even Goyim can also be magish this on a different level, on a different surah. That's a whole shmooze, and I don't.
That's really easy to understand. Why the really religious Goyim? What are they doing?
Some of them are magish it, but through a different source. Some of them do tumah, some are magish. A Goy can be magish it in certain ways. It can. It's strange. Like
harder for them?
I'll tell you a very strange thing. In a certain sense, that leave it.
Different time.
Another time. Way down the road, you're not ready to handle it.
Don't have the same physical feelings as
yeah, but there's certain things, it's too far. You're not ready to handle. I can't,
It's
something like this, I can't, you're not. But
it's a lot harder for guys to feel like that.
Sure. They have much bigger years. Not that I have big years, they're very different types of years.
They start on a lower level.
Yeah, years are different to them. They don't have the kurz and nefesh of the zach. But there's some goyim that do. They're hecha goyim. When we speak about goyim, what is a goy? How does it come to be? We'll talk about that. Right now, a goy is a strange entity. Really, we don't know what it is.
It's really hard to understand. I guess for someone who never went to yeshiva at all, to really feel it, the goyim are really different than
yeah, it's hard. They are different. They're really different. Just like a chosted is different than a tzaddik. Kodesh is different than that. It's different real. It's a different being. You can see, if you see two big Melech Yidden sitting next to each other, right? You see two Elech Yidden sitting next to each other, right? Sometimes one guy is like a Mamusha, he's a Dovik. Now the guy is a very frum Elech guy. One has no shaykhs to the other. But you can't see it because it's all Bekera inside. Look, Chazal Shia.